Hello internet, welcome back, welcome to my channel. My name is Tori, and today I have my update for the 365 days of eyeshadow project. This was created by Jessica. She will be listed down below, as well as everyone else doing this. This update's a little crazy. So, in my last update, since I was so far behind, set a goal of trying to speed run this past month and see if I can use up the 94 eyeshadows, which was the number of eyeshadows I, missed. How many days I've missed doing this project. Let's talk about it. I am not swatching. I'm not doing that. We'll be here too long. But let's just talk about what I, somewhat in chronological order, about everything. I was gonna do this semi in order, but I feel like I'm going to just have to do cuts and point to everything. I think this is gonna be a choppy video, and I feel like it might give the result I want. So bear with me. I'll talk, at the end and in between and stuff like that. But let's start with the first palette I use, which is Honey. Number 1 is Sweet Spot. Number 2 is Oh Behave. Beehive. No, it's Behave. 3 is Oh Dandy. 4 is from the Naked Heat, and it is Cyan. And 5 is Umber. Number 6 is from Honey, and it is Palooza, who is currently missing because it's a glitter and not in this palette. Next comes from the Meet Matrimony palette from the Balm. 7th is Thomas. 8th is Rossi. 9th is Lopez. 10 is Kumar. 11 is Moskowitz. I know I'm butchering that. I'm so sorry. I typically never pronounce that one because I know I say it wrong. Evans is 12th. Reed is 13, and 14 is Ahmed. I used all of these in a one palette look. I used every single shade during that. Well, besides one that we'll talk about in a bit. 15 comes from the Urban Decay Naked Heat palette, and that is Sauce. Low Below is 16th. Lumbre is 17th. And Dirty Talk is 18th. The 19th shade comes from Orange You Glad from ColourPop, and that is the shade Clementine, which is a glitter that is currently not in the palette. Then I decided to start counting some of the eyeshadows that were used recently, but I just didn't tally them for the project. So then Matte Lynn was counted as 20th from the Meet Matrimony palette, and now every single shade from this palette was used. So because I started counting everything that was already used, I counted everything from the Ace Beauté Grandiose palette. Jasmine is 21, Clove is 22, Patchouli is 23, Rose is 24, Myrtle is 25, Cinnamon's 26, Poppy's 27, and Primrose is 28. And then the whole Ace Beauté palette is done for this project. Next for 29, it comes from the KVD Shade and Light I'm Plum Quad. 29 is the base shade. 30 is the Define shade. 31 is the contour shade, and 32 is the highlight. So every single shade was used for this project, well, in this project. 33 comes from the Lime Crime Pocket Candy palette. 33 is Icing. Sorry. Oh gosh, I counted my numbers wrong. Why do I do this? It only happens in this project. My second 32 is Candy Plum. 33 is Icing. Okay, never mind, it might work out because I didn't have a 34. 35 is Nutcracker. 36 comes from the ABH Norvina Volume 3 mini palette. And 36 is A2. 37's B3. No, I counted the pink as 37. 38 came from the Lime Crime Venus 3 palette. 38 is Dreamy. 39 is Ecstasy. Paradise is 40. 41 comes from the Lime Crime Pocket Candy palette, and it is Fairy Floss. 42 comes from the Urban Decay Naked Cherry palette, and that is Hotspot. 43 is Feels. 44 is Bing. 45 is B1 from the ABH Volume 3 palette. 46 comes from the RNG Glad palette, and that is the shade Creamsicle. 47 comes from the Naked Heat palette, and it is the shade He Devil. 48 is Scorched. 49 is En Fuego. 50 is Chaser. And 51 is Ashes, and every single shade was used in the Naked Heat. Side note with this palette, I was making jokes in the last video about saying how I don't use it. I rarely use this palette, even though the tones in this palette look amazing on my eyes and I always get compliments. I'm not drawn to this half of the palette. I only really like these two shades in this whole palette, so that's why I was making jokes about if I'll even use it, but I ended up using all of it. The 52nd shade came from the Lilac You A Lot palette by ColourPop, and that is the shade Imagine That. 53 comes from the Lime Crime Venus 3 palette, and it's the shade Rapture up here. 54 comes from the Lime Crime Pocket Candies palette, and is the shade Sugar and Spice, and that marks all the shades being used in the Lime Crime Pocket Candy palette. The 55th shade is Devilish from the Naked Cherry palette. For the 56th shade, it came from the Urban Decay and Jean-Michel Basquiat Gold Great palette. And this one was a similar situation with Meat Matrimony. Enigma is the 56th shade. Levitation is the 57th shade. Not For Sale is the 58th shade. Sucker Punch is the 59th shade. Influence is the 60th shade. BK is the 61st shade. Why does that sound weird? Pseudonyms, 62, and then Crown is 63. So every single shade was used in this palette. The 64th shade came from Lilac You A Lot, and it is the shade Ghosting. 65th is Filtered. 66 is Wake Me. 67th comes from the Lime Crime Venus 3 palette, and that is Bliss. 68 is Beloved, and 69th is Beam. So every single shade was used in the Lime Crime Venus 3 palette because Heavenly is non-existent. For the 70th shade, it came from the Norvina Volume 3 palette, and that is A3. Wait, no, sorry. This is the 70th shade, 71st, 72nd. Wait, I did the numbers wrong here too. Why? I don't understand how that happened. I have this written down as 67th. This written down as 68. This written down as 69th. 70, 71, 72. Either way, I used all the shades in this palette. I'm really gonna have to come in and do my numbers again because now I'm really confused on what I used and what I didn't use. For 73, I have Privacy from the Cherry palette. Next I have Young Love. Then from the Orange Glad palette, I have Rise and Grind. Then I have Caution from Naked Cherry, Juicy, Turn On, Ambiguous, and Drunk Dial. The 81st shade came from Lilac You A Lot, and that is Cloud. Fluff is 82. Zoned Out is 83. Iffy is 84. That is all the shades from the Lilac You A Lot palette. Yes, Trainwreck I still have, but it's currently is not in here. So Trainwreck will be rolled over to next month, but this palette by itself is done because Trainwreck is, you know, not in the palette. Therefore, it's its own entity. For the 85th shade, it's from the Naked palette, in the shade Toasted. That was the only shade I used from the Naked palette, so this will get rolled over for next month. The 86 shade came from the Naked palette. That is Bang Bang. So now everything is used for the Naked Cherry palette, so it's rolled out for this project. Okay, I'm starting to see where I messed up. I did use Queen Bee from the Honey palette, but I have it marked as 75th, which isn't right. I'm still gonna say the numbers, and then I'm gonna stop filming, go through them, and then talk about them, because now, even though this is supposed to be the 87th shade, it's definitely a lot higher now, and that is from Mimosa Mami. So this is going to have to get rolled over because I did not use every single shade from this palette. So I'm gonna go count all these by hand, and I'll be back with the actual number of eyeshadows I used. Y'all, I knew the amount of eyeshadows I left out for myself to use was more than 94. I used 92 eyeshadows. I went in, found where all the dupes are, then I hand counted. I used 92. I thought I only used like 80 something, and I was happy with that, but I used 92. I'm very excited. I'm back on track. Obviously, I gotta make up the other two, but that is perfectly fine. A lot easier than before. I will be taking these two palettes to school with me now because they weren't completely used for this project. And I am not rolling in eyeshadows for next month currently because they're all packed away. But I will label off the palettes I have available for me to use for this project. It includes the Lorac Mega Pro 4, the e.l.f. Earth and Oceans palette. I have the Lime Crime Venus palette. I have the Lime Crime, not Freshly Squeezed, it's the other one, Sweet Blends palette. There you go, my Panda palette. I have the Naked 3 palette. I am bringing that to school, okay. I have the Kendo Vegan Beauty Pastel Goth. I have the ABH Subculture palette. I have the Too Faced Razzle Dazzle palette. Sorry if you hear my cat snoring. I just realized that she's snoring really loud. And then I have some Sugar Pill shadows, as well as another shadow I'm gonna have to pull in because when I made the list, Heavenly was still like in my collection, but now Heavenly from the Venus 3s, it was completely used up. So I'm going to have to add another shadow, and I might have to add another shadow for Limit from the Naked 3 palette because that is also, I'm pretty sure, completely used up. I'm looking good. After next month, I will pick select palettes to use for this project, but for this next month, and especially because they're all packed and I'm not taking them out, we're just gonna see what happens. See how many I use. How many days are next month? I have to use at least 30 eyeshadows next month for this project, so I'm very excited about it. And I will go back to doing swatches and all that, just as you know. It's been wild over here, so couldn't do that before. But yeah, don't forget to check out everyone else doing this project. As always, they will be listed down below. And I hope you have an amazing day or night whenever you're watching this. Peace out, Girl Scout.